Sometimes I really am when I look at the state of the world. All I've got to do is to think about Clive and I and the cake, and I just burst into gales of laughter. But that's the family that Claire comes from. John is her husband, and they really are a terrific act, and you can see them live, and you can get infected by that quirky humour. if you go this coming Friday, 7:30, the Brunswick number 1 Holland Road in Hove. Make sure I've got that absolutely right. Yes, 1 Holland Road in Hove, the Brunswick. And it starts at 7:30 and goes on till 10:30. And when you put your hand in your pocket, you don't have to buy a ticket. It's free. And it's in the nature of these let's put it this way. They are not spring chickens, but they're 50 years younger than I am. So, I mean, and a very handsome couple. So it's a terrific... a terrific time for you to get a chance to go and listen to them and see them on stage free. Right, let's get back to what we were talking about. And basically, we are worried, silly about governance. Now, most people would say, oh, that's all about Brexit, isn't it? No, it's not. It's the way that perhaps Brexit was handled. It was the way that the MPs have shown their true colours, and really, I can't find one. When I read between the lines, I can't find one that was behaving on behalf of anybody who is a voter. I honestly think that the whole thing became emotional, passionate. It was all about can we get some money out of this or not money out of it? Is it going to affect our pay packet? Because there is no question that if you're in the top echelons of the EU, and if you're in the top echelons of the British government, and for that matter, you can be in a few of the lower echelons as well, you're doing very well for yourselves, thank you. Well, I suppose if I was in that thing, I wouldn't want to rock the boat. But believe me, I've worked for the EU around various places, Romania, Sarajevo, Bosnia. I've observed them at first hand in Kosovo and in other in Lithuania, other various countries, and it's not an organisation I would really want to work for. I'm not a particularly moral man. I'm not a saint. I've made mistakes. I've done naughty things, which perhaps I shouldn't have done. But believe me, when you see what's going on there, and you know, one of the sad things that I find is, once again, this isn't. It's not anti-Brexit or pro-Brexit or whatever. But some of the realities are, I will be able to get jobs. If we stay in the EU, I'll be able to get jobs. Well, not if they're EU jobs, you won't. Because mummy and daddy have already fixed up sons and grandsons and granddaughters and daughters and so on with all the good jobs. That's how it works. Yeah, I'm sorry to say, that's how it works in the EU. So, in some ways, what Boris is saying is, come on, we're being tainted. Let's get our act together. Let's go root and branch through the British governance system, and let's make sure that we've got a good one. Now I can feel my throat beginning to jam up a wee bit. What haven't we played lately? Well, there was one thing I thought that if my memory serves me correct, this one is called Entire, and I think we enjoyed it the other morning, so let's see if we enjoy it more now. Yes, I quite like that. I think that's quite nice. Nice and calm. Mind you, when it comes to music, I'm no expert. I'm a speech man. But also, I'm a bit of a writer. More than a bit of a writer. I've written a couple of books. I doubt if you'd really want to read them. One is called Pay Attention Please, and it was a tome that helped journalists who had been used to text get used to what television journalism demands. And the two disciplines, writing for newspapers and magazines and writing for and appearing and broadcasting, are two very different disciplines. So that was the first book. And the second one was even a more startling title. It was what I wanted to call it. The publisher, no. And it's simply called Business Journalism. And it was written in 2014, and it relied heavily upon the financial crisis of 2008. It's as pertinent today as it ever was. So if you go on Amazon, you can find it, Business Journalism. This is Keith Hayes, by the way, broadcasting from Rouser Radio. What I was really talking about is I haven't a clue what I was talking about. I'm famous for my red herrings. I go down all sorts of paths, and then I forget the main thought. But anyway, it's quite important that we focus on local governance and that we make sure that we are getting good government. There are two basic things that I found interesting in the last couple of weeks or so, and which has convinced me that we're on the right track. First of all, dear old Boris, love him, hate him. You know, we used to talk about Mirador television is like Marmite, love it or hate it, but you won't forget it. And Boris is a bit like that, isn't he? You can't forget him. Sometimes you love him and sometimes you hate him. But he said, listen, we've got it all wrong. We've got to reform the way that we govern people, and that's root and branch. That's from the top, that is Westminster, down to the bottom, which is parish councils. We've got to reform. Well, the EU won't reform, that's part of the problem. Will we? I can tell you now that the resistance will be huge amongst those people already in the job. Well, what would you expect? I mean, they're doing very nicely, thank you. It's filling their pay packets every month, and that's an issue I want to take up because the government says, hey, youngsters, why don't you get your own business going? Why don't you actually become an entrepreneur? And so on. It's very worthy. And personally, having been an entrepreneur for the last 20 years or so, I can tell you now, it is tough. It is tough. And the chances of making a packet of fortune are very slim. You can make a living, but you do have to get used to the fact is that everybody dumps on you. When the check doesn't come in from your client or your customer when you expect it, don't go down to the bank and say, terribly sorry, I haven't been paid. It's too late. The computer has already managed to send you out a letter and tell you that they're going to charge you 12 quid. Well, that's the sort of thing that I think root and branch that any reform has got to do is, if we're going to encourage people to be entrepreneurs, particularly youngsters, don't send them into a financial morass, which is partly of the government's making. Let's see whether we can actually create an environment in which entrepreneurs would flourish. I mean, a true environment, not one of these things that politicians dance up and down and say, yeah. We trying to encourage people through this, that, and the other in the schools. That's rubbish. You encourage people by creating an environment that is attractive to young people to become entrepreneurs, rather than go down to the local labour exchange, we used to call it, I don't know what they call it now, because they've got some fancy title for it, and look on the notice board to see that there's a job there. Well, bless me. All right. Well, it's we started late, and we're 3 minutes over allotted time. Well, in terms of real time, and 3 minutes under on the length of the programme. So I think what we'll do is we'll simply remind you that that we are going to start to take aim and try and get some answers to some of these silly things that are happening, to the inefficiencies, and for that matter, to the bullying that goes on in local councils, and particularly our local council. But that's based on the fact that we do try hard to be local but not parochial. We will take a look at things that happen in the rest of the world on the basis that they may happen here. And that reminds me that the Facebook picture this morning, or not the Facebook picture, but the photo shows Melissa Conte with me. It was taken 2 or 3 years ago when we were both working as anchors on one of America's very top business programs, and Melissa is going to do a little slot each week from New York so that we can share the concerns of New Yorkers. And it's amazing when you get down to it. The worries of New Yorkers are very, very like our own. Surprising, isn't it? Not a bit of it. Okie doke. That's it for this morning, I think. So let's say to you, toodle pip, I think. Yeah, toodle pip.